King George V was on the throne in 1922 when the engineers joined all their wires together and the BBC made its very first radio broadcasts. Television flickered onto some tiny screens just 14 years later. In the early years, TV viewers were few and far between, but the sparkle and pageantry of the Queen's coronation in 1953 got the nation tuning in. By the end of the 1950s, the corporation had offices around the country. In Southampton, the BBC took a lease on the former Southwestern Hotel. Engineers were soon fitting the building with the very latest broadcasting equipment. Then in January 1961, the Director General of the BBC, Hugh Carlton Green, formally announced the creation of a new regional TV station, BBC South.
We're starting a nightly programme of local news exclusively for the area served by our Rowridge transmitter.
It was a pioneering time, and there were plenty of headline-grabbing stories. The South waved goodbye to the old Queen Mary, and it was a hard day's night as fans queued around the clock to buy tickets to see the Beatles in Southampton. By the 1970s, technology was changing, and BBC South was broadcast in colour for the very first time.
2, 1, cue Bruce.
The resumed M3 inquiry.
The 1980s brought challenging news. Crowds cheered as the British task force set sail for the South Atlantic. A few months later, the nation cheered again as the wreck of Henry VIII's flagship, the Mary Rose, was raised from the Solent. In 1991, BBC South left Southwestern House and moved to purpose-built studios. The new building was officially opened by Prince Andrew, who couldn't resist trying out the new remotely controlled cameras.
Very impressive zooming in and out there. For
Yes,
say so.
yes.
Nice.
The 1990s were dominated by protests, first over the M3 cutting through Twyford Down, and then over the Newbury bypass. Then came the new millennium, and the 21st century ushered in new technology. Outside broadcasts, once a major undertaking, became an everyday occurrence.
Certainly a very busy time for staff there, David.
It is, Danny. The A&E department behind me.
2011 seems a very long way from that first broadcast, and a lot has happened here in the South in that time. Over the coming weeks, we'll take a closer look at some of the happier moments and achievements of half a century.